Welcome. I am Therese Fortin Barnes, an environmental toxins health coach and also head guru at the Green Living Gurus. I'm so thankful you are tuning in today to our broadcast, and joining me today on this interview is Ginny Dent Brant. And we are talking about lowering your toxic load and boosting your immune system to prevent and survive cancer, along with other illnesses. And we will touch on COVID a little bit too. And Ginny is a speaker and writer who grew up in the halls of power in Washington, D.C. She has battled cancer, ministered around the world, and served on the front lines of American culture as a counselor, educator, wellness advocate, and adjunct professor. She has an award-winning book, Finding True Freedom from the White House to the World, was endorsed by Chuck Colson and featured in many TV and media interviews. Her recent book, Unleash Your God-Given Healing, 8 Steps to Prevent and Survive Cancer. It won a Golden Scrolls Award and was featured on CBN's Healthy Living show. It was written with commentary from an oncologist and medical researcher. And to learn more about that, we'll put it in the notes at the end, but it's very simple. It's GinnyBrant.com. So welcome, Ginny. I'm so glad that we have finally connected. We went back and forth, but here we are. So thank you for being here with me today.
Well, it's great to be here and speak with someone who has like-mindedness, but I didn't get here overnight, and I certainly didn't start out looking to lower my toxic load.
Right. You had to learn the hard way.
That's right. From the school of hard knocks.
That is no doubt. And I talk to a lot of cancer survivors. And of course, I help cancer survivors and people with a family history of cancer avoid all these toxins. Ultimately, your and my goal is to get people to listen to this before they get cancer, and listen to
Amen.
you and I and the research,
Yeah.
and pay attention and read your ingredients and know your labels, and we could go on and on and on. And I'm so excited to share your book with everybody, because it's a great book and is a great guide to taking these 8 steps. So let's talk a little bit about how long you battled cancer and how your initial diagnosis affected you emotionally and spiritually, because we know that has a lot to do with getting cancer too.
It does. Well, the first shock was when the doctor told me that lump I accidentally found in the middle of the night when my ring got caught in my nightie.
Wow.
That actual little lump was actually cancer. And that was just 4 months after I had lost my mother to breast cancer, and I was still grieving the loss. So that was the first shock. The second shock came when the doctor said, it's not just cancer, it's aggressive. But the third shock is what really sent me to my knees. And that's when the surgeon read the MRI, and he told me in his office, it looks like it's here, there, it's all over your body. And I said, I don't believe you. Show me that MRI. So he flashed it up on a life-size screen, and it looked like a tornado had invaded my body. So it was shock after shock after shock, but it sent me on a quest to discover what caused my cancer, and then in addition, what I could do to help my doctors beat it and lessen the side effects, because all I heard was every weapon of mass destruction will be brought out to save your life. And nobody wants to hear that, but you're glad they've got some things to help. So I'm real big on cancer prevention. Like you just said, I'd like to catch people before they get cancer and implement some of these things up front. And I'm encouraged to see that some of the younger mothers and younger families are more interested in this than the people my age who have lived this way all their life, and changes are hard, very hard. But it did affect my faith. I was puzzled, I was shocked, and it took me a while to realize that, I couldn't blame God for the cancer I got. There must be something I did to help cause it.
Right. And you did a lot of research.
I did.
And going back on that note, going back on preventing, and I want to talk about your research, but going back on preventing, your surgeries, if I heard correctly, and everything that you had to pay, whether it's insurance or not, was over $600,000.
Well, now that's what the insurance company had to pay.
Wow.
That was their part.
Wow.
We paid a good amount from it, depending on what you count, from $50,000 to $100,000. We had to pay with the co-pays and the things I implemented to help save my life, which my husband and I felt was well worth the money. I felt sorry for the insurance company with what they have to pay for cancer care. And it seems to me that they would be all in for promoting cancer prevention and some of the things that I did that could have prevented cancer in the first place, because they're the ones that have to foot that lofty bill.
Right, no doubt. And that's hearing you say that, and the money. And when I hear someone say that organic food is expensive, it makes my mind just boggle my brain, and thinking, do you have any idea what you would have to pay, to what you had to go through, not only the payment, but just the everything that you had to experience. So,
but I used to say the same thing when people would say, well, you should buy organic fruits and vegetables. And I'd say, well, it doesn't seem to be affecting my body. My body seems fine, and it's expensive. Right. But I have a different view now.
Right. And that's what we're here to try to help people. So the research that you did, very interesting, because so many people will go to the doctor and they'll just do what the doctor tells them, but they won't do some research on how they can actually help your recovery, help get this cancer out of your body. And so give us a little bit about that, because that intrigued me.
Well, it was just, I was desperate. I wanted to reduce the side effects, and I was desperate to find out what caused the cancer and what I could do to help my doctors beat it. And as I started to look and listen to people lecture and go to cancer conventions, it was like, oh, there are things I can do backed in medical research to help my doctor beat my cancer. And one of those things that was not proven during my cancer journey was the benefits of exercise for the cancer patient. Now, we all know that exercise helps prevent many diseases and cancers, but when you're in the cancer journey, according to the Australia research study, it was called the COSA study, it took 30 studies and put them together, saying that exercise is one of the best things a cancer patient can do. Now, this gal loved to use exercise to reduce stress, and that's the part it played in my cancer journey. I actually walked 2 miles after my first surgery. When I got back to my room and all the nurses were cheering me on, I was just trying to get the catheter out, and get all the tubes out. And I did get everything out earlier. I got the breast tubes out. I didn't have to go home with the breast tubes. And the doctors were telling me all these things I had done for my body to promote healing, because I had walked 2 miles on the hospital floor. So if you can do it as much as you can walk, even after surgery, they want you up and moving as much as possible, unless they've operated on a weight-bearing part of your body, like your leg or your knee or your ankle. They're going to want you to hold off for about 5 days. But the point is, exercise does so much for the cancer patient in the journey, and it is now proven in research. And what's so interesting is, just a few days ago, I found another article by MD Anderson, a research article. They were testing mice and found that the exercise, a moderate exercise program for those mice, enabled the chemotherapy to better target the cancer.
Interesting.
So, of course, as you know, exercise stimulates the lymphatic system, the one system in our body that only works when we move. And it's your trash system, and it helps you to eliminate a lot of toxins. And chemotherapy and surgery, a lot of toxins are in your body because of that. And the sooner you move them out, the better.
Right. And that goes for somebody that doesn't have cancer either. And somebody that's
right. On an everyday basis, it's very important. Our bodies were made to move during the day.
Great advice. And so you implemented some changes. some specific changes to your lifestyle in addition to taking chemo. And how did your doctors react to that?
Well, to be perfectly honest, no one stopped me from certain things like the exercise and the hydration and the eating healthy foods. No one got on my case about that. But I went to one doctor for a second opinion in my area. And he looked at me and he said, you're coming in after flying in from Chicago after your 4th chemo. You walked 2 miles this morning. You're smiling. You're bald as a bat, but you look great. You feel great. He said, honestly, I've been practicing 30 years. I've never seen a patient on your chemo regimen that can lift their head off the pillow after the 4th chemo. He said, what are you doing differently? And so I thought he was just being complimentary, but he was holding up his waiting room while I was telling him what I was doing differently. And he said, oh, hydration, yes, I highly recommend that. Exercise, yes, if I could just get my cancer patients to do that. And as I kept on going, he was taking notes. I find out later, he convinced the board of the hospital system he worked for to start a cancer wellness and prevention center that he would eventually head up that also does research. And they have 2 nurse practitioners that are helping people to prevent cancer, that are willing to be part of the program, and helping cancer patients to add to what they're doing so that they can fare better.
That is so great. And they called you their rock star cancer patient, right?
Now, that was my cancer care team because 6 weeks after that harsh chemotherapy was over, they looked at me and they said, your blood work is phenomenal. I said, what do you mean? They said, red blood cells, white blood cells, platelets are all back within normal limits within just 6 weeks. Well, again, I thought they were being complimentary, only to find out in time that usually takes 2 to 5 years for someone who's been through the chemo regimen that I've been through. So to do it in 6 weeks shows that I was definitely a part of the healing process with the steps I was taking.
Now, did you go all organic? Did you get rid of all your cleaning supplies and now you just use, I know you're a big proponent of just water and vinegar. Did you make all those changes right away?
It was actually a little bit at a time as I was learning them, but there was that day when I went into my pantry and I was looking for labels because I wanted to find out what I had been eating that was helping to cause some of these issues. And I'm like going crazy, throwing stuff out of the pantry. I didn't even want it. I was so mad. And I replaced things with healthier versions. But honestly, I was quite perturbed that all these things had happened and that my pantry was filled with chemicals and things that were not good for my health. It's just the standard American diet. I was a huge part of it. And when I began to realize how it was impacting me to the point that I got cancer, yeah, I was upset, threw everything out and put in the right things. Now, I don't recommend everyone do that if you don't have cancer, but I do recommend that people gradually throw out or use up what they had and then put the new in. I just had to do it quicker because I was fighting for my life.
Take baby steps. I always tell everybody, you don't have to throw everything away. If you want to, of course, do so, but take baby steps because we both know it can be overwhelming, and no doubt it can be. So, and the big thing here is there's areas that you have control. We all have control of avoiding these carcinogens, cancer-causing chemicals. We have control over it. There's areas we have no control when we walk outside our homes, but we have control. So that was.
We do have some control. And what I try to teach people is you don't have to be perfect. Right. You want to lessen your toxic load. Mm-hmm. Your toxic load will never be perfect and have no chemical residue because you can't live in the world that we live in with 80,000 chemicals invented since the 1900s. And most of those after the Industrial Revolution. There's no way we can live in this world and not be exposed to chemicals and get them in our system. What we're looking to have happen is to lessen the load so our immune system can function properly. What I didn't realize was when I was looking for the cause of my cancer, the doctors and my cancer care team sat down with me and went over the 8 risk factors for the aggressive breast cancer that I got. I didn't have one of the risk factors. And then they did extensive genetic testing, and believe it or not, that showed nothing either. And that's what sent me on the quest. If I don't have the normal risk factors, or I don't have the genetics for this cancer, and I was somewhat of a health nut, but I would say now not health nutty enough, what in the world caused this cancer? And what I would find, and it was only finding this out by seeing it on paper in graphs, when I pushed my home doctors, my integrative medical doctors, to test my tissue to find out what was in it that could have possibly done this to my immune system. And the results came back. I mean, I was in shock again. Toxic chemicals were found in my body at high levels, and many of them were endocrine disrupting hormones.
Right.
Bingo. Part of the cause, not the only cause. It's never one thing that causes cancer, but it certainly, even my doctors, when they saw the test results, they said, oh my goodness, Agent Orange pesticide? Did you serve in Vietnam? Now I've discovered that they're using it on our crops here. I never served in Vietnam. Glyphosate came back at high levels in my body, parabens, phthalates, flame retardant chemicals. I'm going, how in the world did these things end up at high levels in my body? But the interesting thing is I immediately had my husband tested, because we're 2 pigs eating out of the same trough and the same pig pen, right?
Right.
And he worked more with the yard chemicals than I did, and the gasoline and all the yard work. And he did not have the same high levels that I did. His levels were mainly in the green level, not that he didn't have residue. He certainly did, and anybody would. There were a few in the yellow zone, but he did not have the chemical profile that I did. So that kind of puzzled me. And then I realized, you know, his filtering systems work better than mine do. His liver, his kidney, his colon, his lungs, and of course, as you know, our largest detox organ is our skin. My husband sweats at the drop of a hat. If we go for a walk, in 10 minutes he's sweating. It takes me 45 before I even start, if I do. But sweating is one of the best ways to get toxins out of your system.
So true. And so did you relate a lot of this to the lotions and the beauty products and things that women are inundated with every day that have these chemicals in them, where men use some products too, but women, I forgot how many it is, over 200 chemicals we put on our bodies a day. Men are a lot less. Did you look into that a bit too?
Oh, I did. And the cosmetics that I was using for 30 years had a lot of these parabens and phthalates in them. I could directly connect. When I saw the flame retardant, I was like, and then I find out it's in a lot of the materials used in our clothes and our pajamas and our sheets. And I went to all organic things to try to avoid that. So in looking back, I could connect it, but I had no idea until those test results came back.
Fascinating. Wow. I mean, your story is a great story to share, because this is what we talk about all the time. And again, unfortunately, you had to experience it yourself, but you are healthy now, and you are a great testament for so many people to realize that you can make a change in your life, and you can reduce the toxic overload in your body. Our bodies are meant to detox, but to that level, obviously cancer took forefront. So let's talk a little bit about boosting our immune system, because you really have to get rid of the toxic chemicals before you can really boost your immune system, in my personal opinion, because your immune system will do wonders for you. And your immune system can help with viruses and COVID,
Yes,
as we all know
definitely.
too. So what are some things people can do to boost their immune systems?
Well, one of the quickest ways to boost your immune system is to get up every morning and drink 2 glasses of water and make sure you're getting half your body weight in water. Here we go. Every single day. And these patients like me that are going through chemotherapy, I upped my hydration. Now, my cancer care team told me to do that. I had a naturopathic doctor and I had a nutritionist on my care team, and they were outstanding. And so when you have that chemotherapy going in, you definitely want to hydrate. Right. And then it helps once the cancer does its kill job, you want that and exercise to help get all those toxic residues out. So hydration is key to the immune system because it enables every cell and every system in your body to work as God intended. So that's one thing that anybody can do just right off the bat. Another thing, that I had to learn from the cancer journey is that our body detoxes and rebuilds and repairs itself while we are in deep sleep. And when we're in deep sleep, that melatonin that our body produces goes off. And it's a major immune builder and a major cancer fighter. And the research is absolutely clear on that. So if you're concerned about COVID or flus or viruses going around, it doesn't mean you won't get it, but your immune system's going to function better if you're hydrating and if you're getting that deep sleep at night. And let me go back to the water. I also learned that the water creates a barrier in your sinuses, and that barrier can help prevent a virus from planting in your system. So there are protective barriers that require enough water for them to function properly. Then you've got exercise. The research is clear that exercise ups your B and T cells, which ups your immune system. And during these COVID, over a year now, my husband and I have walked 2 to 3 miles every single day. If it's raining like today, we're up on the treadmill upstairs, because moving that lymphatic system is so important to your immune system, not just removing the trash from your body, but upping those B and T cells. So during this whole year or more with COVID, we did, we followed the pandemic. We had to quarantine for a certain amount of time, as the whole nation did, but we were out traveling. I've done TV interviews. I've been to Florida. I've been to Atlanta. I've been all over the Southeast. And we have been to church on Sunday. Our church opened back up with masks, with social distancing. But I found if I was doing the right things, that it didn't seem to be a problem for us. But again, I'm not eating loads of sugar. I don't do that anymore. I love sugar, but I don't do that. Sugar weakens your immune system. Fruits and vegetables and plants build your immune system and help keep your gut healthy. So all these things work together. And then you've got your emotions. If you are living in fear during this pandemic or the cancer journey, and hey, all of us have had our moments of fear. And when I was diagnosed with cancer, I was riding that roller coaster of fear. And you had to, realize this is not helping my prognosis. So the more you can be peaceful and relaxed, even in the middle of a pandemic, by putting in certain measures to protect yourself, the better off your immune system is going to work. So when you put all that together, we play a large part in our health and our immune system. Now, let me give you a disclaimer. I've said several times in several TV interviews that if you follow good health habits and lifestyle changes, you're less likely to get COVID, and that has its truth. But if you do get COVID, you're more likely to have a mild case because your immune system is functioning. Well, we got to test that theory. When you first talked to me, we were in the Virgin Islands, and it wasn't the airlines, but we didn't realize it till we got back home that we felt a little bit exhausted, that there were some things that were going on, and then we found out people we were with had a fever. And turns out we went to get tested. I was negative, my husband was positive, and he was asymptomatic. I kept showing up negative. Finally, my doctor did the blood antibody test, and it showed that I did have COVID. And I could see it in the exhaustion and the loss of appetite, but I didn't have a terrible, horrible cough. I didn't have a fever. I didn't have body aches. The exhaustion was partly what made me look back and go, by the time I got home, I was just really fatigued. It can really do a number on your body. So neither one of us got a bad case of COVID, and we are senior citizens. So it shows that the immune system, if it's working properly, hopefully, if you get COVID, you're going to do better. And if you get the shot, you're better off with your immune system functioning well. That shot's not going to work well if your immune system is not functioning well.
Right. And they're saying a lot of these chemicals that are in, especially the forever chemicals, affect the vaccination too. That's a whole nother topic and story. But
well, I will say, from what I've read, the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines, it's not that they're totally clean, but they don't have the mercury and the aluminum. They do have propylene glycol, which is a toxin, but it's not the worst of the worst. And so that kind of encouraged me. But right now, and no one's telling me to take the shot, I have natural immunity. And when that natural immunity subsides, then we'll have to decide whether we're going to take the shot. I'm kind of waiting for more information to come out and more studies to be done.
Right, right. And you're just coming off of it, so you've got a little bit of time to figure that out. So you've recovered, and you didn't even have any symptoms. So
well, I had some
minor, right,
and the loss of appetite were really the main symptoms that I would look back. But no, it was certainly not a bad case, and we didn't realize it until when the other couple, she had a fever, I said, oh, I better go get a COVID test.
Right.
So, yeah. And yes, you can be asymptomatic and not know that you have it. I was not totally asymptomatic. My husband was more that way. And the other person we were with, one person was asymptomatic totally. And we're all senior citizens. That's what's kind of unusual.
Don't look like
but
a senior
I
citizen.
do believe in protecting the vulnerable, and those people over 75 or that have underlying conditions, they really need to be super cautious.
Yeah, I agree. So our bodies are amazing what they can do, and how they can heal, and how they can fight off illnesses and viruses. And it really is amazing.
And I have learned that from the cancer journey, to have an appreciation for how God created the body to heal. I just realized that I have to get and join with how he created the body, rather than, just expecting my doctor to fix everything and just doing what I want to do and living how I want to live. It's very important that I help my body to work as God intended, instead of just, fly by night,
Right. I mean, it's so true. And I mean, our bodies were meant to fight off these illnesses. We're meant to fight off these diseases, not to be on a toxic overload. Your body can only, we're shoving so much at our bodies every day. So, but God, I agree with you. God is, I thank him every day too, because we're fortunate to have such an entire gift, grateful for the gifts of nature. So
definitely. And I found, while I was studying about cancer, that the high toxic level is also related to risk for Alzheimer's disease, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune. You start looking at the gamut of the whole of all these things that are affected by it. We don't need that immune system to be overloaded or our bucket filled with toxins, because the immune system gets distracted. And I think that's what happened in my cancer journey. And I'll be the first to admit that emotions, for 15 years, I suffered from grief, as did my sister, as did my mother, because my father had Alzheimer's disease. And as we were taking care of him and seeing the daily changes, it was a grief cycle I could not get out of. And eventually all 4 parents passed, and I watched all of them go through a difficult time. And it was just, when you love someone dearly, it just hurt, and I grieved. And when you grieve like that long term, it can derail your immune system. So it's never one thing with cancer, but toxic load and the emotions turned out to be 2 things I never dreamed would affect me. And they were probably at the top of the list for why I got cancer.
And there's other risk factors that you didn't have. What are those other risk factors that the doctors questioned you on?
The number 1 risk factor for all cancers is obesity. And the doctor said I was definitely within my BMI, but I will tell you that I have noticed I've lost about 15 pounds since I got cancer. My body works better without that 15 pounds. So even though the doctor said I was certainly not obese, I was carrying some weight that probably didn't need to be carried, because my blood sugar will go up if I gain an extra 10 or 15 pounds, where most people would say, boy, I'd love to be your weight. Well, if it's doing that to my body, then it's not good for my body.
And on top of that, there's smoking and drinking, too much alcohol.
Oh, yes, drinking is a risk factor. Smoking is a risk factor for all cancers.
Right.
I don't drink, I don't smoke, so again, I thought I was immune to these things because I had a healthy lifestyle. But when it comes to breast cancer and these estrogen fed cancers, nursing your children lowers your risk. I nursed all 3 of my sons, and I had twins, up to 2 years. So I didn't have that risk factor. I did not take hormones, and I never took the birth control pill. All because the man who married us, who was a minister, used to be a research scientist with his doctorate in it. And he worked on the pill for 15 years and said, no, do not take it. So I didn't take it. So all these things help to contribute towards, estrogen dominance as well. So it was amazing that I didn't have those particular risk factors, but it doesn't mean there's not more risk factors. And since I was diagnosed with cancer and went through the treatments, now breastcancer.org is recommending that people consider eating organic because of the research on the pesticides and these endocrine disrupting hormones, because these pesticides can disrupt your hormone imbalance. And the American Cancer Society is saying it might be a problem. But I think eventually they'll be saying it is. It is a problem. As more and more research comes in, all these things, as you said, we're putting on our skin, and 60 to 70% of what we put on our skin gets into our bloodstream. Boy, learned that one the hard way. And, doctors give you medicine on your skin. So, I guess I should have known that, putting 2 to 2 together. But the things you learn, it's just amazing when your attention is all focused because you are struggling to figure out how you're going to live and get through this cancer journey.
Yeah, it's interesting. Somebody said to me the other day, there's all these warnings on cigarettes. They cause cancer. Well, it's the chemicals in the cigarettes that people are smoking that cause the cancer. It's not necessary. It's, those are they don't tell you that. The list of the hundreds of chemicals they put in these, some of those same chemicals people are rubbing on their skin, putting on your face. It's the same thing, but no warning labels on anything else. It's hopefully some of these laws that will be changing over the next couple of years, because there's a lot of
right. And I think we have to be really advocates about this, because when I went to Europe after I finished chemotherapy, I went on a riverboat cruise through Europe. And I talked to the chef before I got there. I said, look, I don't just eat anything anymore. And he said, oh, Miss Brant, don't worry about it. The countries that you're going through in Europe have banned glyphosate, and you don't have to worry about it being on our crops, and you don't have to worry about this and that. And here I find that even their breads are not glyphosated, the wheat. And you sit here and you go, if we could just be a little bit smarter. And then I find when I look at the cosmetics that a lot of the things that are banned in Europe, we don't really have too many rules about cosmetics here. No. So we've certainly got some work to do in this area. And I wouldn't be saying this if I hadn't learned it from the School of Hard Knocks. And I wrote the book because I don't want anyone to go through what I went through, the fear, the years of treatment, the chemotherapy, the surgeries. I would like to save someone from going through that. It's a bit much, and I'd really like for no one to have to go there. And that's why I wrote the book.
And I'm with you on that, Ginny, as well. And you talk about in the book about estrogenic world. Now you touched on estrogen fed cancer and some of the chemicals. Talk about that a little bit, because I feel like this is starting to come to the forefront a little bit, and endocrine disrupting chemicals, but I feel like people still don't understand it.
It is. And I went to a cancer convention where a Canadian cancer coach, I was eating lunch with her. I just met her. And I was telling her I didn't understand why I got an estrogen fed cancer when I had none of the risk factors. And she said, "Oh, Ginny, we live in an estrogenic world." And I'm like, "What?" She said, "It's in our air. It's in our water. It's in the things we put on our skin. It's in our cleaning products. It's all around us." And after she said that, I started taking note, and she was exactly right. All these things were coming into my body through my skin, through what I drink. That's why I drink filtered water, and I think it's an important thing to do. And I don't put just anything on my skin anymore unless it's like pure coconut oil, because that doesn't have chemicals. And so I think what really got me was when I was studying about the estrogen-fed breast cancers in men. Now, men were not created by God to have excess estrogen or to have high amounts of estrogen in their body. Yet 90% of the men who get breast cancer, guess what? They're estrogen driven. And I'm like, that makes no sense at all. Men should not be getting an estrogen driven cancer. Now, the women have 12 personal care products that they use every day on their body. Men have an average of 6. And I have a part in my book where I go through the typical day in a woman's life, showing you the chemicals and the chemical names. And at the end, it's like 78 chemicals that you're exposed to in one day, the way I used to do things. Then I show what I've changed so that I can lessen those endocrine disrupting hormones and chemicals. It's just amazing that we would be in a day and age in which this would happen, but we're here. And that's why people need to wake up and realize it and put a plan into place. I think one of the things that really kind of threw me for a loop was when I saw that the cancer rates were 1 in 30 back in 1930, but today the cancer rates are 1 in 2 and only going up. And another thing I'm seeing is I'm seeing people have not just one cancer. They get rid of one cancer, they get another cancer, or that cancer comes back. Sometimes people will have 2 or 3 cancers in their lifetime, and that is showing us that something needs to be done. Ty Bollinger of Truth About Cancer said, the number 1 cause of cancer is toxins, toxins, toxins. And the more I researched, the more I realized that this man was really onto something. So, like again, we all need to lower our toxic load. And there's simple things we can do it. And there's some things that are a little more complicated, but you just take one thing at a time.
And you touched on the water, because I am a huge proponent of filtered water, reverse osmosis, at least for your drinking water, because there is, and I just did a few things live on my Facebook page and this past week on the chemicals that are in water, but the Environmental Working Group has, if you go Environmental Working Group water, you can plug in your zip code and it will show you the amount of toxic chemicals in your water system wherever you live. And in Buffalo, it's horrible. So you touched on the filter. So that's
important. And I will tell you here that it's really not as bad as it is most places in the exact area that I live in, but it's still, You cannot depend on that water company to give you 100% pure, clean water. And it's really not their responsibility.
Right.
If they distilled it and then sent it out to your home, by the time it got to your home, it would not be pure anymore. So what I tell people is, don't expect the water company to give you the pure water. Make that your responsibility at home once it comes into your home to filter it. And then you're in a much better, and if people don't do the other things, if you do that one thing, that's
Right.
powerful.
I agree with you on that, because all the water companies do is add chemicals to kill the bacteria. They don't do anything about the chemicals and the pharmaceuticals that's in all of our water systems, and the glyphosate and the forever chemicals. So I wanted to add that. So I'm glad that you touched on that as well.
Even though some of our area does try to do some of those things, the problem is they're still putting in the fluoride and the chlorine, which can interfere with thyroid function.
Right, right.
And
Exactly.
so, even doctors are telling people that have low thyroid, filter your water. Don't drink tap water anymore because of the chemicals. So, it's definitely something to think about. And we're grateful for that chlorine that keeps the bacteria out of the water.
Right.
As it comes into our house, but we need to take that chlorine back out at that point.
So can you give us a few nuggets of truth that most people don't know that could help them prevent cancer?
I think most people don't know that 60 to 70% of what you put on your skin is absorbed into your bloodstream. That's one. And one that I learned in the cancer journey, another one I totally flunked that's in my book. I have a whole chapter on this, on healing the gut, because 70 to 80% of your immune cells reside in your gut lining. And most people have compromised guts. And when you go through chemotherapy, if your gut was not compromised, trust me, it will be, and it'll be destroyed, because antibiotics and chemotherapy, more chemotherapy than antibiotics, totally destroy the gut. But I rebuilt my gut, and my naturopathic doctor had my back all during chemotherapy, giving me supplements to protect my gut so that it wouldn't totally be destroyed. So that realizing that your gut is the foundation for your health. And if you've gotten cancer, then you can just pretty much assume that your gut was compromised. Even if you didn't have to have chemotherapy, you can say, well, I need to look at fixing my gut. Anything that's wrong. Hippocrates and other doctors, way back in time, and even the doctors today are saying it all starts in the gut.
Right. You hear a lot about this right now. I've interviewed quite a few people on that. So it's good that's coming to the forefront too, that people are starting to look at the gut and microbiome and helping where it plays a big factor in the immune system and, key to preventing illnesses and battling cancer too.
It definitely does. Again, another lesson I missed that I had to learn from the School of Hard Knocks.
Right. And that's why we're here. So other people can learn from Ginny and read her book. You'll even learn more. But today we're talking just a few little tips and tricks from Ginny's experience and her cancer journey. How about explain one of your steps and how you used it in your cancer journey?
Okay. Well, I mentioned exercise. But I actually walked 2 miles before each chemotherapy, and my chemotherapy was 8 hours long. It was the toughest chemo regimen known to mankind, as my doctors told me. And then I walked 2 miles afterwards, and 2 to 3 miles every day in between, only to find out from that Australian research, that consortium that came together, that it helped the chemo to target the cancer. Of course, it's removing the toxins when I'm exercising from my body and not allowing the chemotherapy to recirculate. When the chemotherapy does not move out of your body, what happens is you can go into sepsis. You've heard of a lot of cancer patients that their liver shuts down, their kidneys shut down. If you keep moving and you keep hydrating, that's probably not going to happen. But another way that I used exercise, besides after the surgery, was cancer journey, because of the chemotherapy and the hormone blocking pill that women are given with estrogen fed cancers, which is a powerful pill. but you're going to lose bone density.
Mm.
And so while I'm losing bone density because taking that pill for 5 years, I am doing a yoga routine designed by a top yoga instructor that helps me to build back that bone density. And that made a huge difference. Instead of having to take all the shots to build back up the bone density, my body did it naturally through these exercises. So I was able to hold the line throughout the 6-year cancer journey and come out with a little bit better bone density than I had before I was diagnosed with cancer through exercise.
And on that note, I just want to add, don't ever use antiperspirant deodorant. When you are exercising, let your pores get those chemicals out of your system. When I travel with people, and if I ever see antiperspirant, let alone deodorant, but antiperspirant, so you don't perspire. We need to perspire to get those toxic chemicals out.
Well, let me tell you this. My doctor, my integrative doctor back home after the chemotherapy, when she did the first heavy metals test, she said, oh, with the chemotherapy, now you've got more heavy metals. And I just cried. I was like, oh no, I'm a toxic dump. She said, you just need to get a sauna. And we bought a sauna, and I was in it yesterday. I'm in it 2 to 3 times a week. My husband gets in it once a week just for prevention, because sweating is a powerful way to remove these toxins that build up in our system.
Yeah, we have one too. It's probably one of my favorite things that I have here. And do you sell the saunas, Ginny?
No, I don't.
Okay, I sell them, Sunlight, and I just started, but side note, because I am a firm believer in saunas, and they're not even on my website or anything yet, but we've had one here for an infrared one here for years. So it is definitely, I love that you brought that up, because I think it's such a great, somebody's printing behind me.
Well, I tell people that have finished the cancer journey, your battle is not over. The doctors may have stopped your cancer. Your job is to prevent it from coming back. And the first thing they need to do is look at how they can clean all those chemicals out of their body. Some they had before cancer, some have been put in their body through the chemotherapy. And so they really need to look at how they can get those chemicals out.
So anything else you want to add before we, I think we covered quite a bit here, which is great for anybody.
I do have a cancer wellness and prevention blog that I update weekly, and it's at www.GinnyBrant.com. And if you'll sign up for that, as I learn new things, I keep posting them. I don't stop learning. I'm sure you keep learning too.
All the time. Yes, it's every day I'm diving into different articles, different research articles, and it changes every day. And I try to keep up with the laws and how things are changing with that. Even products, every day there's certain products that I thought were okay, and then I see it, somebody might have bought it, and you have to always read the ingredients, know your labels, but it's hard. That's what you and I are here for, to help people navigate through this madness of what these chemicals are doing to our systems. And I encourage everybody to get Ginny's book, GinnyBrant.com. You can find, right, GinnyBrant.com. I have that right, Ginny?
Yes, it's on Amazon, but you can also get it from my website. And it's written with an oncologist who is a major medical researcher and practiced oncology for 55 years. So he was on the edge of this cancer thing in a way that most doctors weren't. And he believed in the lifestyle changes. He believed in the cancer patient being a part of having a good prognosis.
Right. And it's read the book to prevent cancer. If you have cancer, read it to get advice on how to use some of the techniques that we just talked about here today. You can change your habits. You can change your life. You can get through you can survive cancer. If Ginny could do what she did, you can too if you happen to have cancer or a family history of cancer. So we're here to battle it all together and get the knowledge is power. So Ginny, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. And you and I are gonna talk a lot more down the road.
Oh, yes. Let's stay in touch.
For sure.